So last year's Dell XPS 15 2020, I actually sent back after my review. It just had too many QC issues, one being the touchpad. The touchpad would randomly click if you just placed your finger on top of it. And the other thing was the thermal management. It just wasn't that good. This year, they seem to fix a lot of that, but there's still one issue I want to talk about. Before we get into that, the design is exactly the same. Like, you're still getting that premium metal design, and when you open it up, you have that carbon fiber deck. I still think this is one of the nicest looking laptops on the market. I know some of you don't like this carbon fiber feel because of the actual fingerprints that it collects. Now, personally, if you're responsible and you clean your laptop, I like this because when my palms are resting on it, it just feels a lot nicer than a typical metal slab.
Hello, it's Matt's grandma, Olga. I have a joke for you. What do you call a singing computer? Adele. Please like and subscribe.
The keyboard is still great. It's one of my favorite keyboards to type on. There's good travel distance. When you press your finger down on a key, it feels very satisfying to press. I know there's not a numpad, and some of you number warriors out there might be disappointed by that. But here's the upside. You get a keyboard and touchpad that has good symmetry. Like, look at the way this looks. This looks beautiful. And you get a massive touchpad to go with it. This touchpad is very accurate when you use it. I don't have any of those ghost clicks like I mentioned earlier in the video. The only thing that is kind of concerning is that when you press down on it, it doesn't have the same confidence as the MacBook Pro 16's touchpad. So maybe over a couple of years, you might find this touchpad to get a bit too loose. You have speakers on the top. The sound is good. It's not better than the MacBook Pro 16, but it's really good for a Windows laptop. You have your fingerprint scanner, which is baked inside of the power button, or you can use Windows Hello to log you in. Now, the ports have stayed exactly the same. You have your two Thunderbolt 4 ports on the left-hand side with your Kensington lock, and then on the right-hand side, you have a full-size SD card slot plus a USB Type-C 3.2 Gen port, which can also be used to hook up to a display or for power delivery. But the one thing I really like about the XPS lineup is their display offerings. You can get a 4K display, or you can get a 1920 by 1200 display like I have right here. That 16 by 10 aspect ratio just makes this feel so much bigger, and the color accuracy and brightness on this panel is superb. Even if you don't spend the extra money for the 4K panel, you're gonna love this thing because I feel super confident doing content creation on it, and everything just looks great. Now, this is the matte display, so you're not gonna have any of that crazy reflection you'd get on a glass panel, which is something you'd probably get with the 4K option. The 720p webcam is still on top. It's still not the greatest webcam, but considering how thin these bezels are on here, I imagine it'd be really tough to put a 1080p webcam on the top of this laptop. Now, I actually bought this laptop with my own money, and I gravitated towards a SKU that I think most people will be attracted to, like the i7-11800H. I don't think buying an i9 with a chassis this thin is really worth it. It comes with 16 gigabytes of RAM, an RTX 3050 Ti, that 1920 by 1200 bright display, and a 512 gigabyte NVMe SSD. Now, performance on this for 11800H is low compared to the competition, at least when it comes to multi-core performance. You take something like the Gigabyte Aero 15 and it's just gonna completely beat this thing out. And it should, because there's more thermal headroom. Single core performance is in line. Like, it actually did a comparable job to other processors in its vicinity. And if you're using the Adobe suite, it actually performs very well, even though in synthetics, it's clocking lower. You know, it beat out the Ryzen 9 5900HS that's inside of the Asus G14. And this could just come down to the fact that Intel processors are better optimized for Adobe Premiere Pro. Same thing with Adobe Photoshop, right? Even though technically the G14 has the better processor and the more beefier GPU, this thing beat it out. Now, this is not a gaming laptop, right? You're not going out to buy this to game, but if you are gaming on the side, the 3050 Ti can handle games at high settings if you don't mind gaming at around 60 frames per second. Now, the reason why performance is lower on this laptop is because Dell has taken the opposite approach. Instead of letting things get out of hand and letting the CPU get super hot on ultra performance mode, what they're doing instead is they're tuning it for fan noise and keeping the laptop cool. That's why when this thing is under complete load, you get lower scores. But you get a CPU that runs around 85 degrees Celsius, but the clock speeds drop down to go along with it. Fan noise is pretty good, right? You know, you blast this thing as hard as you can, and yeah, it's gonna get over 50 decibels and you're gonna hear it, but it's not overbearing like you'd hear on a gaming laptop. And if you don't like the loudness of Ultra Performance, you can switch between different profiles. There's 4 different profiles to choose from. Now, taking a look inside, we have your 2 fans with heat pipes running across the middle to cool the CPU and GPU. We have a big 86 watt-hour battery. I got great battery life with this, over 10 hours of use using the optimized profile. We have one drive that's populated, 512 gigabyte NVMe SSD, but there is an extra slot for a second one on the left-hand side if you want to add more storage. Wi-Fi card is soldered onto the motherboard, and you have 2 slots of upgradable memory. Now, you can potentially upgrade this to 32 gigabytes, but here's the downfall. This is an expensive laptop, and they're including rank 16 memory. So if you were to go out and buy a rank 8 memory, you would actually get a speed improvement in a lot of the games you play, and about 5 to 10% performance improvement in a lot of the creative apps or productivity apps that you're used to using. So here's the thing. I can finally recommend a Dell XPS 15 again. Yes, it's not perfect. And if you're looking to squeeze as much performance out of this processor and GPU, there's better options for the price. But if you're just looking for a super clean Ultrabook with pretty good performance, good thermals if you don't mind them being super conservative, and great battery life, then this year's Dell XPS 15 is a much better product than it was a year ago. If you have any more questions about this laptop, let me know in the comment section down below. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one.